MCI was founded February 1st, 1866. That's about 10 months after the Civil War. The railroad had just come to Pittsfield in 1855. You could take a train trip from Pittsfield to Bangor or to Waterville. And a dam had gone in, a stone dam, a mill dam was put in a couple of years after MCI was founded. Pittsfield was at the threshold of a 20-year building boom, and MCI was a part of that. A Free Will Baptist minister named Orrin B. Cheney had gone to Parsonsfield Academy in the southwest corner of Maine, and actually was the headmaster there, the principal, in the 1840s. He was an abolitionist. The school burned down in 1854, and Cheney looked around for a more centrally located place to build a new school, and he had his eye on Pittsfield. And it turned out at the same time, people in Lewiston came up with $15,000 to help support a school. So the school was established there instead, and that became ultimately Bates College. A few years later, Reverend Cheney and Ebenezer Knowlton, who was another Free Will Baptist minister, who at that time was on the board of Bates College, realized that Bates needed a feeder school. They needed a school to prepare people to enter that college, and once again started looking for a central Maine community. Again, they looked at Pittsfield. Pittsfield, again, being on the railroad line, that was seen as an asset. People could go to school not only from Pittsfield, but could commute from Bangor or Waterville, come up to school, and go back home the same day. This time, the people of Pittsfield pledged about $20,000 towards the building of a new school, which was a considerable sum. That's probably about $300,000 today.
There were a number of significant factors coming together to make MCI possible. First, the funding, contributed by a number of generous Pittsfield residents, was clearly critical for location selection. Secondly, Orrin Cheney pushed for the formal incorporation from the state. There were some other men directly involved with the creation of the school who would later join Cheney as the founders of MCI, the eventual namesake of MCI's main office building.
We'd have to talk about Going Hathorne. He was a businessman in town. He had come to town in the 1830s, really made his career here. He was a miller, he had a lumber mill, he had a flour mill, he was involved in real estate. He owned 80 acres south of the railroad tracks, and he realized the advantages to having, the economic advantages of having a school in town. He donated 20 acres of land of his 80 and $1,500 in cash as well. And he was involved in getting the materials together to build Founders Hall and even establishing a brickyard north of campus to make the bricks. Jesse Connor was another local businessman, and there were ministers, several clergymen involved. Nathaniel Weymouth was one, A.L. Garish, and Father William Stinson.
The first cornerstone of Founders Hall, initially named the Institute Building, was not placed until August of 1868. When the very first classes started in August of 1866, it was a different landscape, both locally and nationally, than exists today.
It had to be interesting. They started school before they had the building. They started school almost right away. They had classes in the local village school. They had classes in public halls, and there was a private house here on the campus that also held classes. The first class had 83 students, 51 men and 32 women. A couple of years later, they had 130. They had 4 10-week sessions at that point, and the summer and winter sessions were more lightly attended because some of the students were actually teaching in the local school systems. It was a different time. In 1870, we had about 38.5 million people in the United States. 7 million elementary school students, only 80,000 high school students, only 9,000 college graduates. So high school wasn't an expectation for most people, and you would go to high school, among other things, to prepare for college. Today we have 8 times as many people, but 200 times as many high school students. So to think of this school, this secondary school being established in this little town in central Maine that had 1,800 people, around that time, I think is pretty astonishing.